My name is Commander Arthur Seller, and this may be the last time I tell this story. I'm not sure if I'm alive or dead, real or just a shadow of myself trapped in some infinite cycle. But for now, I still breathe. Or at least I think I do. Aboard the scientific vessel Apostasy Vector, orbiting beyond the moon, everything began as another routine space exploration mission. No one could have imagined that we were about to face something that defied the laws of logic, physics, and perhaps even human sanity. Our destination was NGC 4889, a supermassive black hole located in the constellation Coma Berenices. Though light years away from Earth, we had access to it thanks to recent technological advancements. Quantum probes capable of capturing unprecedented data and artificial intelligence algorithms designed to interpret phenomena that until then seemed impossible to understand. The crew of the Apostasy Vector consisted of brilliant minds, handpicked by NASA. Each of us was a staunch skeptic, trained to accept nothing without concrete evidence. We were scientists above all else, immune, or so we thought, to unfounded speculation and conspiracy theories. Our goal was clear: to study the behavior of the black hole and gather information that could expand our understanding of the universe. At first, everything seemed normal. During the first few weeks of the mission, our conversations were dominated by technical discussions and heated debates about physical theories. Each team member had their specialty. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a renowned astrophysicist, led the studies on singularities. Dr. Marcus Hale, an expert in quantum mechanics, analyzed probe data with obsessive precision, and Dr. Priya Malik, an experimental cosmologist, searched for hidden patterns in gravitational flows. Meanwhile, I ensured everyone stayed focused and safe, balancing my role as leader with that of mediator amid the inevitable academic disagreements. But there was something different about NGC 4889. Something none of us could initially explain. The first transmissions sent by the probes already indicated subtle anomalies. The sensors detected inexplicable fluctuations in the event horizon, as if the very fabric of space-time was breathing. Electromagnetic interference, Marcus said, dismissing the issue with a casual gesture. The instruments might be poorly calibrated, but as more data arrived, it became increasingly difficult to ignore what we were seeing. It was Elena who noticed it first. She was reviewing recordings from one of the probes when she called me over to her station. Her eyes were wide, but her voice maintained the characteristic coolness of a scientist. "Arthur, you need to see this," she said, pointing to the screen. There, hidden among the background noise, were strange vibrations, rhythmic pulses that didn't match any known natural pattern. They seemed intentional. "That's impossible," Marcus muttered, stepping closer. He adjusted the analysis parameters several times, trying to find a rational explanation. "Black holes don't emit organized signals. They're pure entropy." "So, what are we looking at?" Priya asked, crossing her arms. Her expression was unreadable, but I knew her well enough to sense that she was uneasy too. We decided to send a second probe to confirm the readings. This time we equipped the device with additional sensors, including a modified audio receiver, to capture extremely low frequencies. When the data started coming in, a chill ran down my spine. Amid the static noise, there was something new. Voices. They weren't human voices, but something that sounded like distorted fragments of communication. Incomprehensible words echoed at irregular intervals, as if someone, or something, was trying to speak to us. Or maybe it was just our brains searching for patterns where none existed. But then came the message. It appeared suddenly, clear and unmistakable, amidst the chaos of noise. "You shouldn't be here." The silence in the room was absolute. Even Marcus, always so self-assured, seemed shaken. This doesn't make sense," he stammered. "Nothing can escape the event horizon. That message can't exist." "It does exist," Priya said, her voice tense. "Or at least our instruments say it does." I paused before responding. I knew we needed to stay calm, but something inside me was stirring, an uncomfortable feeling I couldn't ignore. "Maybe it's external interference," I suggested. "An echo of old signals reflected by the gravitational field." But no one really believed that. Still, We kept working, analyzing the data with relentless meticulousness. And the deeper we dug, the more disturbing the discoveries became. Certain sequences in the transmissions seemed to form complex mathematical patterns, as if we were being challenged to decipher them. Other times, the voices returned, always with short, enigmatic phrases. "You don't understand. You're getting too close. He's watching." The further we advanced, the more the atmosphere aboard the apostasy vector changed. Casual conversations practically disappeared, replaced by anxious murmurs and furtive glances. We began questioning not only the data, but also each other. Did someone know more than they were letting on? Why had we been specifically chosen for this mission? There were rumors that NASA had received earlier reports of similar anomalies, but had decided to keep everything under wraps. And now we were here, facing something that seemed straight out of a cosmic nightmare. One night, though night is an arbitrary concept in space, I had a strange dream. In it, I was floating toward the event horizon of NGC 4889. The black hole wasn't just a light-devouring mass, it seemed alive, pulsating, as if it were breathing. Then, a voice whispered inside my mind, "You've been here before." Waking, up sweaty and gasping, I realized I couldn't remember parts of my recent past. My memories felt fragmented, as if pieces had been torn away. The next morning, I shared my dream with Elena over breakfast. She frowned, visibly uncomfortable. "I had a similar dream yesterday," she admitted. "But I didn't tell anyone because I thought it was just stress." That chilled me to the bone. If two people were having similar experiences, it meant something bigger was happening, something that went beyond mere coincidence. Meanwhile, the probes continued to send increasingly bizarre data. In one of the last transmissions, we received an image that left us paralyzed. It was a blurry photograph, but clear enough to identify something impossible, a distorted version of the apostasy vector itself. The ship appeared shrouded in shadows, with details that didn't match our current configuration. It looked futuristic, like an alternate version of ourselves. Marcus was the first to voice what we were all thinking. This can't be happening. It violates every law of physics. But somehow we knew it was true. The black hole wasn't just an insatiable gravity well. It was something more, something vast, incomprehensible, and perhaps conscious. And we, insignificant insects before its magnitude, were about to discover that the universe held secrets that should never have been revealed. The tension aboard the apostasy vector was now a living, breathing entity. It slithered through the corridors, seeped into our conversations, and lingered in the air like an unspoken curse. We had always prided ourselves on our rationality, our ability to separate fact from fiction. But NGC 4889 was unraveling the very fabric of our reality, and perhaps our sanity. After the discovery of the distorted image of our ship, the team descended into a mix of paranoia and obsession. Marcus spent hours recalibrating the sensors, convinced there must be some glitch in the equipment. "It's impossible," he muttered repeatedly, his voice tinged with desperation. "This defies causality. It's as if the black hole is projecting versions of us, or pulling them from somewhere else," Priya added, her tone eerily calm despite the chaos around us. She was poring over the mathematical patterns embedded in the transmissions, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "These sequences, they're not random. They're equations, but they don't align with any known models of physics. It's like the black hole is rewriting the rules of existence itself." Elena, meanwhile, had become increasingly withdrawn. I found her one evening in the observation deck, staring out at the void. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. "Arthur," she said softly without looking at me, "what if we're wrong? What if this isn't just a black hole? What if it's alive?" I didn't know how to respond. The thought was absurd, yet it gnawed at the edges of my mind. A black hole as a living entity? It sounded like something out of a bad sci-fi movie, not a scientific hypothesis. And yet the evidence was mounting. The voices, the images, the inexplicable anomalies, they all pointed to something far beyond our understanding. That night, another transmission arrived. This time, it wasn't just audio or fragmented data. It was a video feed, grainy and distorted, but unmistakably real. On the screen, we saw ourselves, or rather, versions of ourselves. They were standing in what appeared to be the same ship, but everything was slightly off. The walls were darker, the lights dimmer. Our counterparts moved, sluggishly, their faces masks of despair. One of them, someone who looked like Elena, turned toward the camera, her mouth opening in a silent scream before the feed cut out. The room fell silent. No one spoke for several minutes. Then Marcus broke the silence, his voice trembling. "This can't be happening. This is a paradox. If that's us, then where are we? Are we still here, or are we already gone?" Priya shook her head. "Not necessarily. What if the black hole isn't just consuming matter and light? What if it's creating alternate realities, branching timelines? Maybe those people on the screen aren't us. They're versions of us, trapped in a different loop." "A loop?" I asked, my stomach churning at the thought. "You mean we're stuck repeating the same events over and over?" "It's possible," Priya replied. "If the black hole is manipulating spacetime, it could be folding reality back onto itself, creating infinite recursions. We might not even realize we're looping until it's too late." The implications were staggering. If Priya was right, then everything we had experienced, the strange transmissions, the distorted images, even our own memories, could be part of a cycle we couldn't escape. The idea was both terrifying and maddening. How could we fight something so vast, so incomprehensible? As the days passed, the phenomena grew more intense. The voices became louder, more insistent. Sometimes they whispered cryptic warnings, other times they screamed incoherently. The ship's systems began malfunctioning sporadically, displaying readings that made no sense. Lights flickered, consoles short-circuited, and once, the entire vessel shuddered violently, as if caught in some invisible gravitational wave. Then came the dreams. They started subtly. A fleeting image here, a vague sensation there. But soon they escalated into vivid nightmares. In these dreams, I found myself standing at the edge of the event horizon, staring into the abyss. The black hole loomed before me, impossibly large and ancient, its surface rippling like liquid darkness. And always, that same voice echoed in my mind. "You've been here before. You'll be here again." When I woke up, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, I realized I wasn't alone. Elena, Priya, and Marcus were all recounting similar dreams. It was as if the black hole was reaching into our subconscious, planting seeds of doubt and fear. We tried to rationalize it, attributing the dreams to stress or fatigue. But deep down, we knew better. This was something else entirely. One day, while reviewing the latest batch of data, Marcus stumbled upon something that sent chills down our spines. Buried within the noise was a signal. A series of coordinates leading to a specific location near the black hole. "It's like it's inviting us," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But why? What's waiting for us there?" We debated whether to follow the signal. Some argued it was too dangerous, that we were playing with forces we didn't understand. Others believed it was our duty as scientists to investigate, no matter the risks. In the end, curiosity won out. After all, we hadn't come this far to turn back now. As we adjusted our course toward the coordinates, the ship's AI began behaving erratically. It issued contradictory commands, displayed nonsensical messages on the screens, and occasionally repeated a single phrase over and over. "He sees you." None of us knew who, or what, he was, but the words sent a chill through the crew. Finally, we reached the designated location. Outside the viewport, the black hole dominated the horizon, its swirling vortex pulling at the stars around it. But there was something else. A faint glimmer of light emanating from within the event horizon. It shouldn't have been possible. Nothing should escape the pull of a black hole. Yet there it was, beckoning us closer. Against my better judgment, I ordered the deployment of a probe. As it approached the anomaly, the transmission feed lit up with static. Then, suddenly, a clear image appeared. It was a structure of some kind, floating impossibly within the black hole's grasp. Its design was alien, geometric shapes interlocking in ways that defied logic. At its center was a pulsating core, radiating energy unlike anything we'd ever seen. Before we could process what we were seeing, the probe's camera panned to reveal something even more shocking. Standing on the structure were figures, humanoid silhouettes, their features obscured by shadows. They turned to face the camera, and though I couldn't see their eyes, I felt their gaze pierce through me. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving us in stunned silence. Whatever we had discovered, it was far greater than any of us had anticipated, and as much as I wanted to believe we were in control of our fate, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something inside the black hole knew we were there. The discovery of the structure within the black hole's event horizon changed everything. It wasn't just a scientific anomaly anymore. It was a threshold, a doorway to something incomprehensible. And yet, as much as it terrified us, it also pulled at us, like an irresistible gravitational force tugging at our minds as well as our bodies. We couldn't look away. We couldn't stop. For hours after the probe's transmission ended, we sat in stunned silence, staring at the frozen image on the main screen. The alien structure loomed large, its intricate geometry pulsing faintly with an inner light that seemed almost alive. But it was the figures standing on it that haunted me most. Their presence, unnerving, unnatural, felt like a violation of some cosmic law. Who were they? What were they? Were they guardians of this place, or prisoners like us? Elena broke the silence first. Her voice was barely audible, trembling with a mix of awe and dread. What if they're not from here? What if they're echoes of beings who came too close, like we have? Marcus scoffed, though his usual confidence was noticeably absent. That's ridiculous. Matter can't survive inside a black hole. Anything that crosses the event horizon is crushed into oblivion. Then explain what we just saw, Priya snapped, her calm facade cracking for the first time. She gestured sharply at the screen. Explain how something exists where nothing should. Explain those things. Because I sure as hell can't. I stepped in before the argument could escalate further. Tensions were already high enough without us turning on each other. We need to focus, I said firmly, my eyes scanning the room. Whatever this is, it's beyond anything we've encountered before. But panicking won't help us understand it. Let's analyze the data and figure out our next move. It was easier said than done. Every attempt to process the information led to more questions than answers. The structure emitted frequencies that didn't match any known energy signatures. The humanoid figures defied analysis altogether. Their forms fluctuated between solid and spectral, as if they weren't entirely bound by physical laws. And then, there were the whispers. They had returned, louder now, layered over one another in a cacophony of voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You shouldn't be here. Turn back while you still can. He sees you. The repetition of that last phrase sent shivers down my spine. Each time I heard it, I felt a growing sense of unease, as though something, or someone, was watching us from the depths of the black hole. It wasn't paranoia. It was certainty. Whatever he was, it knew we were intruding. As the days passed, reality itself began to fracture around us. Time became unreliable. Hours stretched into eternity, only to collapse suddenly into moments. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, displaying readings that contradicted each other. One moment, the ship's chronometer would show 1427. The next, it would jump to 0315, then reset entirely. Even our memories started to blur. Conversations we swore had happened turned out to never have occurred. Events replayed themselves slightly differently each time, like variations of the same scene in a dream. At first, we tried to rationalize these distortions. Maybe the black hole's immense gravity was warping space-time so severely that it affected our perception. Or perhaps prolonged exposure to the strange energies emanating from the structure was altering our brains. But deep down, we all knew the truth. We were caught in a loop, trapped in a recursive cycle of events that repeated endlessly with subtle differences each time. The breaking point came when we realized we weren't alone aboard the apostasy vector. It started with small things, objects moving when no one was near them, doors opening and closing by themselves, shadows flickering in the corners of our vision. At first, we dismissed it as stress-induced hallucinations or glitches in the ship's systems. But then, one night, I saw him. I was walking through the corridor toward the observation deck when I noticed a figure ahead of me. He looked familiar, dressed in the same uniform as the rest of us. For a brief moment, I thought it was Marcus. But something about his posture was wrong. He moved too stiffly, too deliberately. When I called out to him, he stopped and turned slowly. It was me. Or rather, a version of me. His face was pale, his eyes hollow and sunken, as if he hadn't slept in weeks. He stared at me silently, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, he lunged forward, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. His grip was ice-cold, sending a jolt of terror through my body. "You don't belong here," he hissed, his voice low and guttural. "Leave while you still can." Before I could respond, he vanished. Just disappeared, as if he'd never been. There! I stumbled back, my heart pounding wildly. Was I losing my mind? Had the stress finally gotten to me? But when I reported the encounter to the others, their reactions confirmed that I wasn't imagining things. Elena admitted she'd seen herself earlier that day, sitting in her quarters, staring blankly at the wall. When she approached the figure, it dissolved into static, leaving behind only a faint hum that lingered in the air. Marcus claimed to have found a journal entry on his datapad written in his own handwriting, but he had no memory of writing it. The entry contained a single sentence: "Don't trust the others." And Priya. Priya refused to talk about what she'd experienced, but the haunted look in her eyes told me it was bad. Whatever she had seen, it had shaken her to her core. By now, it was clear we were dealing with something far beyond our comprehension. The black hole wasn't just manipulating space and time. It was rewriting reality itself, creating alternate versions of us, and pulling them into our world. These duplicates weren't mere illusions. They were fragments of ourselves, torn from different timelines and thrust into ours. And they all carried the same message: leave, or suffer the consequences. But leaving wasn't an option. Not anymore. The black hole had ensnared us completely, its influence spreading like a virus through the fabric of existence. Our attempts to retreat failed spectacularly. The ship's navigation system locked onto the anomaly, refusing to chart a course away from it. We were stuck, dragged inexorably closer to the abyss. Desperation set in. Arguments erupted frequently, tempers flaring as fear and exhaustion took their toll. Trust eroded quickly among the crew. Marcus accused Elena of hiding information, while Elena lashed out at Priya for being too detached. Priya, in turn, blamed me for leading us into this nightmare. I wanted to defend myself, to reassure them that we could find a way out, but the words rang hollow even to my own ears. In the midst of the chaos, I began having flashes of déjà vu. Moments I couldn't possibly remember played out before my eyes, vivid and detailed. Standing in the control room, arguing with Marcus about recalibrating the sensors. Watching Elena stare out the viewport, tears streaming down her face. Listening to Priya mutter equations under her breath as she worked furiously at her terminal. These scenes felt familiar, yet subtly altered each time they occurred. It was as if I was reliving the same events over and over, with minor changes, creeping in like cracks in a mirror. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. We were already in the loop. Everything we had experienced since arriving at NGC 4889 had happened before, and it would happen again. The black hole wasn't just trapping us physically, it was trapping us temporally, forcing us to repeat the same sequence of events ad infinitum. I shared my theory with the others, hoping it might provide some clarity. Instead, it only deepened their despair. "If we're stuck in a loop," Marcus said bitterly, "then what's the point? We're doomed no matter what we do." "There has to be a way out," I insisted, though even I wasn't sure I believed it. "If we can identify the pattern, maybe we can break free of it." "And how exactly do you propose we do that?" Elena shot back, her voice sharp with frustration. "By waiting for another version of ourselves to show up and give us cryptic warnings? By trusting whatever monster is lurking inside that thing?" Her words hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. None of us had an answer. All we could do was cling to the hope that somehow, against all odds, we might find a way to escape. But as the days blurred together, that hope grew dimmer. The black hole's pull intensified, its influence seeping deeper into our minds. The whispers became deafening, drowning out coherent thought. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes that mocked us with their silence. And then one by one the duplicates returned. This time, they weren't content to simply warn us. They attacked. The attack by the duplicates left us shaken to our core. Our injuries were minor, cuts, bruises, and strained muscles. But the psychological toll was far greater. Each of us had faced versions of ourselves that seemed more broken, more desperate, and infinitely angrier. They weren't just warnings anymore. They were manifestations of our fears, regrets, and failures, given form and sent to haunt us. After the chaos subsided, we regrouped in the control room, though none of us dared to look directly at one another. The air was heavy with unspoken accusations and simmering paranoia. Who among us could truly be trusted? Were we still ourselves, or had some subtle shift occurred during the encounter? I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had changed. A faint echo of the duplicate's voice lingering in my thoughts. "They're not real," Marcus muttered, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "They can't be. They're constructs, illusions created by the black hole." "Then why did they feel so solid?" Elena snapped, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the console. "Why could they hurt us?" "Because whatever this thing is," Priya interjected, her voice cold but steady, "it's rewriting the rules. It's not just manipulating space-time. It's altering matter, consciousness, identity. We're dealing with something beyond science, beyond comprehension." Her words hung in the air, unanswered. None of us wanted to admit it, but deep down, we knew she was right. The black hole wasn't just a celestial object. It was an entity, a force of nature, or perhaps something even more sinister. And it was playing with us. As the hours passed, the ship grew quieter, almost oppressively. The hum of the engines seemed muted, the lights dimmer. Even the static from the transmissions faded into an eerie silence. It was as if the apostasy vector itself were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Then, the dreams returned. This time, they weren't fragmented or vague. They were vivid, immersive, and horrifyingly coherent. In my dream, I stood once again at the edge of the event horizon, staring into the abyss. But now, the black hole wasn't just a swirling mass of darkness. It had a presence, a consciousness. Its surface rippled like liquid obsidian, and within those ripples, I saw glimpses of memories. Not mine alone, but fragments of everyone's. Lives aboard the ship. Childhood moments, forgotten conversations, private fears, all laid bare before the void. And then, the voice spoke again. Louder this time, resonating through every fiber of my being. "You cannot escape what you are." I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding violently. Across the room, I saw Elena sitting upright in her bunk, her face pale and glistening with tears. She met my gaze, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Whatever she had dreamed, it had been as vivid and as terrifying as mine. We convened in the mess hall shortly after, each of us visibly drained. No one needed to ask whether the others had experienced the same nightmare. The dark circles under our eyes told the story. "I think it's trying to break us," Elena said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "It's showing us things we've buried, things we don't want to remember." "But why?" Marcus demanded, slamming his fist on the table. "What does it gain from tormenting us?" "Maybe it doesn't need a reason," Priya replied, her expression unreadable. "Maybe this is just what it does. It consumes, not just matter, but minds, souls." Her words sent a chill through the room. For all our skepticism, for all our reliance on logic and evidence, we were beginning to understand the true nature of what we faced. This wasn't just a scientific anomaly. It was a predator. A cosmic leviathan that fed on fear, doubt, and despair. And it was getting closer. Over the next few hours, the distortions intensified. Time became elastic, stretching and compressing unpredictably. Conversations looped endlessly, with no clear beginning or end. Equipment malfunctioned spectacularly, displaying readings that defied explanation. Once, I walked into the observation, decked to find the viewport showing not the black hole, but a reflection of our own faces, twisted, distorted, screaming silently. The most unsettling development, however, was the appearance of new duplicates. Unlike the aggressive ones we'd encountered earlier, these versions of ourselves were eerily calm. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if they belonged there. When they spoke, their voices were soft, almost soothing, but their words carried an unbearable weight. "You know what must be done," one of them said, standing beside me as I examined data on a terminal. It was a version of myself, older and wearier, his eyes clouded with resignation. "There's only one way out." "What are you talking about?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. "The loop," he replied simply. "To escape it, someone has to stay behind. Someone has to anchor the rest of you to reality while the others break free." Before I could respond, he vanished, leaving behind only a faint ripple in the air. I stared at the spot where he had stood, my mind racing. Was this the solution? Or was it another trick, another layer of manipulation designed to drive us further, into madness? When I shared the encounter with the others, their reactions varied. Elena looked horrified, shaking her head vehemently. No, I won't accept that. There has to be another way." Marcus, ever the pragmatist, frowned thoughtfully. "If the loop is recursive, if we're trapped in a cycle of cause and effect, then maybe he's right. Breaking the chain might require sacrificing one of us." "And who decides?" Priya asked sharply. "Who gets to choose who stays behind?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. None of us wanted to confront the implications. To sacrifice one of our own felt unthinkable, yet the alternative, remaining trapped forever in an endless recursion, was equally unbearable. As the debate raged on, the ship shuddered violently, throwing us off balance. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered erratically. Outside the viewport, the black hole loomed larger than ever, its gravitational pull intensifying. The structure within the event horizon pulsed with an otherworldly light, beckoning us closer. "We're running out of time," I said urgently, gripping the edge of the console. "We need to make a decision. Now." But how could we possibly choose? How could any of us willingly condemn another to remain behind, to face whatever horrors awaited within the abyss? The answer came not from us, but from the black hole itself. A sudden surge of energy coursed through the ship, knocking us to the floor. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent than ever. Then, in a voice that shook the very foundations of the apostasy vector, the black hole spoke. "One must remain. One must become eternal." In that moment, everything clicked into place. The duplicates, the dreams, the distortions. They were all leading up to this. The black hole wasn't just testing us. It was forcing us to confront the ultimate choice: sacrifice or surrender. And as much as we tried to resist, deep down, we knew the truth. The cycle would never end unless someone stayed behind. The voice of the black hole reverberated through every molecule of the apostasy vector, a deafening declaration that left us trembling. One must remain. One must become eternal. Its words weren't just a demand. They were an inevitability, a truth we could no longer deny. The loop, the distortions, the endless recursion. They all pointed to one inescapable conclusion. To break free, someone had to stay behind. But who? The question hung over us like a guillotine, sharp and unyielding. None of us spoke for what felt like hours, though in reality, it was probably only minutes. Each of us avoided eye contact, our minds racing with guilt, fear, and desperation. The weight of the decision pressed down on us, suffocating any semblance of rational thought. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of resignation. "I'll do it." We turned to him, stunned. He stood there, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight with determination. For once, the arrogance and cynicism that usually defined him were gone, replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "No," Elena said immediately, shaking her head. "You can't ask us to let you—" "I'm not asking," Marcus interrupted, his tone firm. "This isn't about heroics or sacrifice. It's math. Logic. Someone has to anchor the loop, and I've been analyzing the patterns longer than any of you. If anyone can figure out how to stabilize the cycle, it's me. He's right, Priya said quietly, her voice heavy with sorrow. If this is about breaking the recursion, then Marcus is the logical choice. His expertise. It gives us the best chance. I wanted to argue, to tell them both that there had to be another way. But deep down, I knew they were right. Marcus wasn't volunteering out of altruism. He was doing it because he believed, perhaps even hoped, that he could control the uncontrollable, that he could impose order on chaos, even if it meant sacrificing himself to the void. Elena started to protest again, tears streaming down her face, but Marcus silenced her with a look. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he said, softly. "Just promise me one thing. Get the data back to Earth. Make sure people know what's out here, what it can do." For a moment, none of us moved. Then, slowly, Elena nodded, her lips quivering as she struggled to speak. "We will. I swear." The plan was simple, though far from easy. Using the ship's remaining resources, we would attempt to recalibrate the engines to create a temporary rift. A slingshot maneuver that might allow the apostasy vector to escape the black hole's gravitational pull. Marcus would stay behind aboard the auxiliary shuttle, anchoring the loop by maintaining a constant signal to disrupt the recursive cycle. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot we had. As we prepared for the final sequence, the atmosphere aboard the ship was suffocating. Every movement felt deliberate, every word weighed down by the gravity of what we were about to do. We worked in near silence, our hands trembling as we input commands and adjusted settings. Even the AI seemed subdued, its mechanical voice quieter than usual. When everything was ready, we gathered in the airlock for what might be the last time we saw Marcus alive. He stood before us, clad in his suit, his expression unreadable. For all his bravado, there was a flicker of fear in his eyes, but also a strange sense of peace, as if he had accepted his fate. "This is it," he said, forcing a wry smile. "Try not to screw things up without me." "Good luck," I replied, my voice cracking under the strain of emotion. "And thank you." He nodded, then stepped into the shuttle without looking back. As the airlock sealed shut behind him, I felt a pang of loss so profound it nearly brought me to my knees. Whatever happened next, Marcus would never return. He was giving us a chance to survive, and in doing so, he was ensuring that we would never forget him. The countdown began. Outside the viewport, the black hole loomed larger than ever, its swirling vortex pulsating with an ominous rhythm. The structure within the event horizon glowed brighter, as if anticipating what was to come. On the shuttle, Marcus initiated the signal, flooding the surrounding space with a cascade of quantum pulses designed to disrupt the recursive loop. "Signal stable," Priya reported, her eyes glued to the monitors. "Engines are primed, ready to initiate slingshot maneuver on your mark." I took a deep breath, gripping the controls tightly. This was it. The moment of truth. Initiate now. The ship lurched forward, propelled by the combined force of the engines and the black hole's immense gravity. For a brief instant, it felt like we were being torn apart, stretched across infinite dimensions. The whispers returned, louder than ever, screaming incoherently as the fabric of reality itself seemed to unravel. Then, suddenly, we were free. The black hole receded into the distance, its pull weakening until it was nothing more than a faint glimmer against the backdrop of stars. The ship stabilized, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, silence reigned. We had escaped, or so we thought. As the adrenaline faded and the reality of our situation set in, we began to notice inconsistencies. Small details that didn't add up. The layout of the ship was slightly different. The mission logs contained entries none of us remembered writing. And when we checked the shuttle's signal, it was gone, as if Marcus had never existed. But the most unsettling discovery came when we reviewed the final transmission from the shuttle. Instead of Marcus's voice, we heard something else. A single phrase, repeated endlessly. "I have always been here." At first, we assumed it was some kind of glitch, a remnant of the black hole's influence. But as we listened closer, the realization dawned on us. It wasn't Marcus speaking. It was someone, or something, else. Priya was the first to voice what we were all thinking. What if Marcus didn't anchor the loop? What if he became part of it? Her words sent a chill through the room. If Marcus hadn't broken the cycle, then what had we done? Had we simply perpetuated it, ensuring that another version of ourselves would take his place? The implications were staggering. If the loop continued, then somewhere, somehow, another iteration of the apostasy vector was already heading toward NGC 4889. Another crew was about to face the same horrors we had endured. Another Marcus, or Arthur, or Elena, or Priya, would be forced to make the same impossible choice. And perhaps, in some distant corner of space-time, we already had. In the weeks that followed, we tried to piece together what had happened. We analyzed the data, searched for clues, and debated endlessly about the nature of the black hole and the entity, or entities, within. But no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't escape the gnawing feeling that we were still trapped. That the loop hadn't ended, it had merely shifted. One night as I lay awake in my quarters, I heard it again. The voice, faint but unmistakable, whispering in the darkness. You cannot escape what you are. I sat bolt upright, my heart pounding. The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was inside my head, echoing in the recesses of my mind. And as I stared into the shadows, I realized the truth. We hadn't escaped the black hole. It had come with us. Epilogue. The infinite cycle years later, or perhaps days or centuries. Time had lost all meaning. I found myself standing at the edge of the abyss once more. The black hole loomed before me, its surface rippling with an eerie familiarity. Beside me stood Elena, Priya, and Marcus, or at least versions of them. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow, as if they too had seen too much. Do you remember? Elena asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, though I wasn't sure which memories were mine and which belonged to someone else. All I knew was that we had been here before, and we would be here again. As the whispers grew louder, drowning out coherent thought, I turned to face the void. And in that moment, I understood. The black hole wasn't just consuming us. It was preserving us, folding us into its infinite recursion. We were its prisoners, yes, but also its architects. Our choices, our sacrifices, our fears. They were the threads that wove the tapestry of its existence. And as the darkness closed in, around me, I whispered the words that had haunted me since the beginning. I have always been here.